Hi, my name is Rita, and I live in an HOA. In fact, I live in this particular HOA, Cobblestone at South Mountain, since 2004 when I purchased this house in this community. I wanted a house in a community where they were going to help me with the front yards. I was a single homeowner at the time, and I worked in the preservation conservation industry of the landscaping. And I worked with corporate offices like with BOMA, and I worked with IFMA, and we put together best known practices in these fields of turf and trees and everything else for corporations. And I assumed that all corporations did this. I assumed that all nonprofit corporations, if they were dealing with a community like this, would have what you would have a best known practice, like a manual. I mean, a car gets a manual, a refrigerator gets a manual, my curling iron gets a manual, but an HOA does not. So our community right now has never followed with any of their advice. And I'm going to show you in the next couple of videos the poor condition that our community is in. And we're just forced to pay for it. They have provided many tactics of retaliation towards me. They've threatened me, sent me letters, turned their backs on me. We don't have to speak to you because I'm saying none of the things that they have chosen to do follow with any advice. We're just forced to pay for it. And I've been talking with our legislatures, or not talking with them, sending letters, sending information. But right now, we're in a position where they want to do a whole revamp of our landscaping. And they couldn't do, we're going to be upside down, hundreds of thousands of dollars. If they couldn't even keep up with what we have. We're not even 20 years old. The only reason to revamp our landscape is because they let it die. They had such bad contractors, they kept disassembling and reassembling our irrigation. And then they says, well, everything died, so now we'll put more plants in. They've replaced plants 3 times. We're not even 20 years old. So what I'm pleading with you is not just this community, because most people say, get another board. Nobody in the HOA industry is required to follow best known practices. That means they just get to do stuff. And I'm going to show you, I don't believe any homeowner, we're shareholders. Homeowners are the ones that get to experience our environment. Homeowners are the ones that pay for the expenses, but we have absolutely no say. I mean, they even took the contracts off where we used to have a portal, and I would go and look and show and everybody, hey, you guys don't even know what you're buying. The contracts are written by our contractors. Our RFPs are written by our contractors. They don't know what they're buying, and they're not following any best known practice, and now they want to revamp everything at our cost. They raise our rates again. And so what I'm pleading for is if they're going to be managing for a nonprofit corporation, I want to know why aren't they bound to follow best known practices? If they're going to be running a corporation, a nonprofit corporation for any homeowner, why don't the homeowners have the right to know why they've arrived at what they're spending the money on? I want to know if we're living in an HOA, which is a nonprofit corporation, and we fork out all the bills, why don't we have a say-so in what they're going to do? So I'm pleading with you. I'm going to give you the next few videos to take a look at our condition, and I'm pleading with you to tell them to stop it until we can create a sustainable program in our community. And by doing that, you're not going to just end up here, but you're going to see, and I'll share it with you in a different video, where this is going to help homeowners valley-wide, statewide, and even nationwide. because the homeowner should not have to pay for the ignorance, for the incompetent, and the exploitation of our funds just because they don't want to. And so we'll see how you feel when you see the rest of the videos. I want to record the condition of our community. This is under 20 years of management that I have been campaigning for change for 10 of it. Campaigning for change for 10 years. This is our frontage. I'd like to know, because this is our front entrance. This is the way we're seen. This shows you our value to our properties. This shows you how well taken care of our property management team says they're doing the best they can. Okay, well, let's take a look at why. Because if this was your property, if you had an investment, if you were a shareholder and you were paying almost $200 a month, wouldn't you want to know how your money is being spent? And not by given a budget sheet saying, see, we have the authority to spend it. Wouldn't you want to know how you arrived at making the decisions you made? This is my house. As you can see, my plants were cut. Last year they did it out of retaliation. They knew how angry I get because of their care for the plant material is so awful. Cut, kill, replace has been their motive. And I've been trying to explain to them that there's a seasonal transition that's supposed to be done with plants. But they want me to shut up. And so retaliation is the first thing that they want to do. And here we go. So this used to be a hibiscus. It doesn't look like it'll survive. It may a little bit this year, but it's been damaged so many times. Hibiscuses are very, very weak. And then, of course, you know, you have a pittosporum and these are not just mine. They may be in front of my house, but they're not just mine. You see, the landscape here belongs to the community. The trees belong to the community. These plants belong to the community. So cutting my plants to own me, to set me straight, to show me that they have the authority to do so, sounds like they're in junior high, because it's not a way to run a nonprofit corporation. This is one of the houses that get to run their own property. She has her own contractor come, take care of her plants and her tree. Yes, she has the authority to take care of her front yard because favoritism. This row used to be full of plants and trees. We're not 20 years old, remind you, we're not even 20 years old. But about 4 years ago, the board did not know how to run the community, and neither did the landscapers and neither did the property manager. So since they did not know how to run their irrigation system, or our irrigation system, they kept dismantling it. It was what you would call on a daisy chain. It's a 2-wire. But they didn't know that. So they kept dismantling the valves and shutting off our irrigation in areas. Well, that's our assets. Well, they didn't know. Well, we'll hire somebody else, but they'll charge us for it. In the meantime, we lost all of our trees and our plants due to it. Not just here, throughout the whole community. You can see of this house, yeah, it's springtime. We've got all kinds of decorative stuff going on. About 5 or 6 years ago, they made us take all of our decorative stuff down. They says, it's community property. You're not allowed to have decorative stuff in front. And then they said, well, okay, maybe. And then they said, well, if we approve it. So this lady had this little dragon. Well, we don't like that, but you can do this. Is that running a community? I mean, what are we, junior high? We like this, we don't like that. What I've been asking for is that if we're going to put plants in front of our houses, we should know what plants we're putting in front of what house. 2 years ago, they says, well, we're gonna do this huge plant replacement. I said, why? They says, because the homeowners are complaining. I said, well, valid reason. But they had it set up that you put some plant someplace. I'm not allowed to get any of this information to show you because they took it off the website. That means they have no idea what plant went where. There's no accountability, but they have the authority to do it, and they have the authority to charge us homeowners and raise the rates. Well, we're not making enough, they said. The question is, if you're going to be running a nonprofit corporation, shouldn't you be bound to know what you are placing where and why? Because the plants they picked needed a 3-foot radius, and the places they were putting them, maybe in a 1 to 2 foot little box. That's not a way to run a property. That just means you're doing stuff. This is an irrigation system. You can see we've got dead plants. And they're claiming that they put in new clocks. That looks like that they did. Unfortunate problem is if they take care of the new system as well as they took care of the old, this one won't work either in 5 years. We spent 5 years dismantling our last system. We spent 3 years reassembling it. Now we're spending all the money to replace it because the old one doesn't work anymore. No accountability. Because you see, us homeowners just have to pay the bill. I'd like for them to show their work to somebody corporate, like you. First time in 20 years they decided to paint something other than, well, the lady, the favorite, they did paint that wall and the front entrance 2 years ago. Other than that, nothing else was painted until just this last week because they want to show good faith. See, we're doing things. They're not repairing. They're just painting over everything, hoping we'd shut up. This here, this used to be our decorated sidewalk so that people knew they were coming up close to a street crossing, sidewalk crossing. They covered it up. You know what they said? We couldn't afford it. Well, if you couldn't afford it, why did you choose to do it? How are you spending your money? This was an asset to this property. These are assets. They're decorative crosswalks. These trees are assets. These sidewalks are assets. But how they're treated, we have no say-so. None. Those were our evergreen elms. This used to be full of trees through here. They've all been dyed, most of them because same thing. As you can see, our cedar trees, the water was not working because they kept dismantling our system and then reassembling and then dismantling. We paid for that. But I want you to show not just the ones that in the winter time, they're gutted. Gutted trees, you should look what that means. I want you to see these. They've already been damaged to the point where they can't grow. They're going to be the twigs that you see out front, like the cityscapes did. Our one last hanging cedar tree hasn't died yet, but all the other ones did. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 just along here that were killed just on this line. All the ones in through here, they used to have like, I don't know, I want to say 20 of them, they're all gone. We're not even 20 years old. Not even 20 years old. Now, as you can see, they've gutted our trees, all of them. Gutting a tree isn't protecting, preserving, or conserving our assets. Gutting trees means you're trying to kill them. If you go online and you talk to any arborist, they say, don't gut a tree. But yet, they thought it looked cool, I think. I know the property manager tried to do it for 3 years. We finally got a new group. They said, yeah, we're going to protect your property. And then they approved it because he said, yeah, it looks cool, man. Looks cool. I wanted you to see this. Last year, they went through here and took all these plants in front of this sign and they gutted them, just like they did the trees. There was no purpose, like it wasn't to protect the plants or to show more of the cobblestone sign. It was strictly because they thought it looked cool. They've been struggling trying to live, and you can see all the little suckers around to try to protect itself, and they may survive. They were here a long time before they were given the cool effect. But is that how you run? Is that how you're supposed to run a nonprofit corporation? As you can see, those are dead. They have what you call potato vines and weeds. 2 years ago, they replaced it because it was all granite. 2 years ago, it was all granite because the people who were there before, the board members said, we can't afford those flowers every year. And then 2 years ago, oh, let's put the flowers back in. Oh, then now we're just done with dead weeds. Why? Because they don't have to be accountable how much they spend on what. They just get to spend and charge us for it. You say, well, get a new board in, but they're not given any different information that every single board member was given. And that's the problem. They're not giving any information different than what the property management provides them. Now that you've seen some of the condition of our community, I just showed you what was done just this last year. You'd be amazed at how much has been going on for the last 10 years. Each board member believes that they're doing the right thing by the information that they're provided. And the only information they get is what comes from the property managers. That's why I finally created a platform. And I'll share with you what that is. It's called Community Resource Advocates. And friends buying friends, or people saying, hey, Joe's landscape contractor over here does a pretty good job. Why don't you have them come over? The board members would actually have what you would call a guide, a creation for what is considered a 10-year program, a guide for sustainable practices. Because all other corporations carry a sustainable practice. They all go through their books and they know when to change a filter, and they know when the light bulbs might go out, or when they're going to have to take out the motor and have it rebuilt. They get a guide to know this, but the HOA industry doesn't, which is how this lack of information, uneducated people making uneducated decisions, is why HOAs are ran the way they're ran. They have no place to go. So I'm pleading with you. I'm pleading with you. Our property manager said they don't need to know any of this stuff to the other board members. When I finally got on the board and they wanted me to create a sustainable program, he convinced the other board members that I was not allowed to talk to a contractor. I was not allowed to create a program. I was only supposed to vote, and if I didn't vote with him, that was fine. I would be considered there would be 4 yeses and 1 no. They were still making decisions based off of ignorance. Ignorance meaning none of their research, none of their knowledge was given. They're just making stuff up. So since he kept telling them I just wanted things my way and I was an unruly homeowner, I want to tell you what, the decorative crosswalks that were covered up, I want you to say what they're described as in corporate America. Having the applications of decorated crosswalks for pedestrians and intersections. There is the endurable blend offers a long-term solution in heavy trafficked areas without the need for touch-up or reapplication as a result for any automobile traffic or foot traffic. That means telling the community members, well, we can't afford it, is a lie. Because they didn't need to touch anything up. There was nothing to protect, nothing to preserve, nothing to cover. They did it because they didn't know anything different. And the contractor suggested it. They recommended it. And the board members said, okay. Desert shrubs do not thrive when homeowners and landscapers shear them into geometric shapes, such as balls, squares, and inverted pyramids. Well, you know what ours look like, and you definitely know what front of mine. They're going to be the smallest ones. Desert shrubs do not conform formally to garden expectations. It's hard to see this is from AMWA, Arizona Municipal Waters Association. They're the ones that wrote this. You can pull it right off their website. Shrubs that grow in humidity and get regular rain survive and recover more easily from regular shearing to create hedges and formal shapes. Desert shrubs are different. These shrubs survive all year long on sparse resources under relentless sun and arid conditions. They cannot withstand the added stress of shearing. They remove the leaves and where the food is stored, and the shrubs that need to grow and fight off disease. When the gardeners shear off the leaves, the shrubs use the stored energy just to survive, and they live in perpetual stress. Well, like I said, our plants have been replaced 3 times, and we're not even 20 years old. Okay, lion's tail. I'm just naming a few. You already know that they've disassembled and reassembled our irrigation system. Now they're putting in new clocks, and now they want to revamp everything. I'm begging for help. Why is lion's tail bad? It over-elongates the branches, puts all the weight at the ends. It reduces too little foliage. They lose their ability to protect themselves. They need the leaves to make their food. On hot days, they use the canopy the top outer canopy to photosynthesize. Can't do it because it gets too hot. So they rely on the interior canopy to produce the essential sugars to feed the tree. Well, they're all gone. Now they don't have that. They're going to be in perpetual stress forever and again. So instead of protecting, preserving, and conserving our assets, they're killing them. They're decimating them. When they reduce the foliage, they get sunburned, and the branches that are normally shaded are exposed to the suns. The branches will develop open wounds. They bleed. The tops of the branches cells are killed, and the branches fall off from the wind. And if you drive by our community on Baseline here, you'll see fallen branches from everywhere, because that's what they did to those trees too. Anyway, nothing they're doing here with irrigation, with landscaping, with tree and shrub care is considered a best known practice or a conserving, preserving, anything. They just do stuff, and we have to pay the price. So what I'm asking for is to stop them from continuing this behavior until we get a sustainable program going so that they know the difference. And as for the other things that they pick, like, get off the streets, or, we don't like that dragon in front of the house, we can work on those in our CC&Rs. Because our CC&Rs are just a guideline for them to help. We suggest keep the cars off, use the same trash cans. We want uniformity. We want to keep it nice. That's what a CC&R is all about. But if they make up rules and all of a sudden start fining you for made up stuff, coming up with new reasons and new fees, then we have to really take a look at why. Because if they can't manage what they've got, because they don't know how to, then they should step down. And that's how I feel about it. So help me if you can. I'm Rita. I live in Cobblestone at South Mountain. I hope to hear from you soon.